Okie doke. So now we're live on Mr. Sci-Fi. Hi guys, and we're live on the table. Good. Phew! What an adventure. So, how are you doing, Adam?
I'm doing good. Just getting on the. Judith is calling, so I'll be right back.
Okay. So, yeah, it's fine. Just come on and join me. There you go. Elaine is setting up the lights. Is that tilted? Is it okay? Is it solid? There we go. Whew, sorry for the slight delay, guys. So David, hi David, how are you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Good. So I guess you don't want to start first, do you, David, or would you rather go a little later? Okay. So we'll and Adam, are you back? No, he's still talking to Judith. So Nick, do you want to start? Do you want to take your turn?
Yeah, sure.
Go for it.
Hey, how's everyone doing? My name's Nick Rajewski. I just moved to LA like 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
Finally got out here.
From
took
where?
A lot longer than I thought it would.
From where?
From Boston.
Oh, great.
So now these meetings are a lot easier starting at 5:30 than 8:30.
Yeah.
But yeah, just aspiring screenwriter with partner Alex Pytak over there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I've just been spending this last month just getting settled in LA, looking to go to the studio tomorrow. David mentioned they were starting at like 10 a.m. So hopefully I can stop by on my lunch, maybe take like a 2-hour long lunch or whatever.
Great.
Meet everybody. We're actually in a screenwriting competition right now for horror, because it's, the Halloween season. So that's what Alex and I have been working on, like 2 separate scripts.
Great.
And Mark, I wanted to ask you with the horror / sci-fi elements and like something like Alien.
Mm-hmm.
Like why do you think it like what's the main thing a horror script needs? I wanted to relate it to sci-fi somehow, so that's why I threw out Alien. But like, what's like the most important thing to make it like a memorable movie? Is it like the xenomorph from Alien, or is it more like the Sigourney Weaver character?
It depends on what your aspirations are. Most horror films are forgettable because they don't have characters you care about, and they don't have anything that's distinctive or particularly fresh. What they came up with in Alien was the notion of, well, there were many things that were very, very, very fresh in Alien, but the big oh my god moment was when that thing bursts out of the chest, because they were looking to certain insects in the real world that basically plant their eggs in some prey species body, and then they burst out when they're ready to be born. And it's so they were finding something that made it fresh. Horror, the challenge with horror is that we've all seen a lot of horror movies in our lives, and so like what's going to be a shock, and what's going to be interesting.
Well, but it's more than that. We cared about those characters.
Yeah, particularly Sigourney Weaver.
So particularly Sigourney Weaver, but they seemed real to us.
Yes.
And therefore, because they seemed real, and they weren't just there to be menaced, it actually felt real, and they had points of view, and everybody was different.
Yeah.
And so you got involved in what was happening
in the people.
The problem is that in many films now, there are no stakes because you don't care about the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to set up characters up top where we care about what happens to them. Yes. And that's the weakness of a lot of films, including action films, where they don't set up relationships, they don't set up 3-dimensional people. And and they don't do that work rather than setting it in a horror format. There's a very good piece of film that's going on. It's a miniseries called Midnight Mass.
Yeah, on Netflix. It's a series. It's very, very good. It's horror, but it really is commenting on life and religion and many issues. The real starting point in terms of doing horror is to say what scares me personally. So not what have I seen in horror movies that's, it's like what really scares me. And the more you really go into that, the more you can come up with something really cool. Again, it depends on your ambitions and your aspirations. But the trick is always, you have to decide what your philosophy is, because there's 2 different kinds of horror movies. There are horror movies where no matter what you do, you're screwed. okay, and everybody gets killed essentially. And then there are other horror movies where the person who's the smartest and the bravest and the most resourceful survives. Alien is a great example of that, as is Aliens. And so one has a very dark view of things and one is a little more hopeful. It's just a style choice, but I mean, one of the reasons why Get Out was so successful was because it combined um two different storylines. It basically was Guess Who's Coming to Dinner combined with the Stepford Wives. And so one of those inspirations was not a horror film and the other was. And so they were able to comment on race in a very fresh way through that synthesis of previously existing storylines. So that's some of it. I know that's an extremely complicated answer, but but again, if you just want to, make something that goes from point A to point B to point C to point D, then you don't have to do any of that. It's like get together some actors, figure out ways for them to get murdered, and you're good. So but but
Yeah.
but the more you do something interesting, the more you do something fresh. There's a really good film we just watched called Affliction that was basically two filmmakers going around the world. Mainly it was Spain and Italy, and one of them gets attacked by a vampire and then becomes a vampire. But the way they did it was very fresh and very fun and very and all the makeup effects and other visual effects were done extremely well. And it was I'm sure not a high budget, but it was very effectively done and very well done. So that's just something to
again,
check
they
out.
gave you the time and they gave you the chance to really connect to the characters, what the characters wanted.
Yeah.
And then they integrated what happened into their personal dilemmas.
Yeah. I mean, the main thing is always to say what entertains me, what interests me. And again, yeah, you probably aren't aware of this. I story edited Friday the 13th, the series. So I have written horror and overseen other people writing it. And it's a fun genre. It's fun to write.
Well, but one of the things that he did that he and his friends stood for, which was you don't victimize the people that usually victimize. In other words, you're not going to kill homeless people. You're not going to kill prostitutes.
I said our villains can be perverse, but we must not be. And so that's again, so that's where like torture porn, things like that are, not my cup of tea. So, but a movie like Midsummer, I thought was an amazing film and really creepy. So again, it just depends on what you want to do.
Or John Carpenter's
The Thing. Yeah,
where,
that's a great movie.
I need to watch that again.
Yeah,
but if you want to see why it works versus why a similar film doesn't, look at the one from 2011, the sort of prequel that totally sucks, and it's because the characters, you don't know who the hell they are, whereas in John Carpenter they're totally distinctive, and they were going to use practical effects in the later one just as they had in the earlier one, and instead the studio at the last minute said put in CG instead, and the CG looks like shit. So so those are a couple of considerations.
And in the Twilight Zone,
well, yeah,
the word was the thing to be afraid of is something that working on you that you
the greatest fear of all is the unknown working on you, which you cannot share with others. That's what Rod came up with. So anyway, so anything else?
No, yeah, you hit a lot of points, a lot more than I was expecting. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I just like a lot of things to take into consideration when I'm writing it. It's like a 25-page max submission.
Mm-hmm.
So I just need to find a way to get my characters to be likable as quickly as possible, so I can get the action going.
Watch films that have likable characters and really break it down scene by scene to say, why do I like this character? One of the greatest films that ever introduced a number of characters very well and very succinctly is Aliens. You get to know those soldiers and who they are and what they stand for and what they care about. It's an amazing job of establishing characters very briefly, but very, very well. And so that's, and also in terms of casting, make sure you cast people who look very different from each other, and that can help too. And so that's some of it. It's
there's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
Well, in the old
good starting point. Thank you so much.
Sure. Well, the one other thing is in the old Twilight Zone, which only had that much time.
It was a TV show.
Yes, with the old one, you see these characters there where you really got hooked into them, hooked into what they wanted, hooked into their struggle.
Yeah.
And so the outcome became very important.
Yeah. So
and that was just like those were quickies. Those were short.
Also, there's a wonderful convention that comes around every 6 months or so called Monsterpalooza, and it's a convention for creature makers, and you can actually find really good monsters there for not a lot of money. So just to let you know.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So anything else?
No, that's it. Thanks so much.
Yay! 3 cheers. Good job. So Adam, do we have any Mr. Sci-Fi questions yet?
Yes, we do. And then, you could also hire me because I've been told I'm very likable.
Yes, yes.
And my mom says I'm cool, so it must be true.
There you go.
So our question is from Gregory Krug, and he says, do you have a favorite Hitchcock movie?
Yes. I think The Birds. I mean, I really like The Birds. I mean, Rear Window's great, and Vertigo's amazing, and Psycho is one of a kind. But The Birds, it's amazing that he did a monster movie, and it doesn't seem like a monster movie. I just think it's great. I love Rod Taylor in it, and it's just a wonderful film. And they've now done a 4K restoration and spiffed up the visual effects, and it's just a great film. It's wonderful and spectacular. And that's a horror movie that isn't using any of the standard trappings of horror, and it works like gangbusters.
Even a score,
it doesn't even have a score. It doesn't. Bernard Herrmann was a consultant on it to utilize the sounds of the birds to build tension and so forth, but they altered them electronically and so forth. But it's a great film. It's a great film. So
and you mentioned Rear Window. I love that opening sequence.
Yes.
Everything you need to know about
why he's in a cast. Yes. It's wonderful. And but Hitchcock there's nobody like him. I mean, even North by Northwest has many charming things in it, and 39 Steps and Lady on a Train. I mean, he's definitely a great filmmaker, and the amazing thing is how he really varied within suspense. He did a lot of different kinds of stories, and I mean, Rebecca is another great film that he directed. But then when he felt that his bag of tricks was starting to get old hat, he then did Psycho, and that just kicked the shit out of everything. I mean, it was like no film ever made. It starts with a completely different plot. The audience is following along thinking, oh, there's this woman and she's stolen some money from her job, and is she going to go back, and blah, blah, blah. And then she just gets, randomly murdered.
But one of the things that audiences most admire is that you've got this insane killer, but when her car gets stuck in the swamp and doesn't sink for a few minutes, we're all saying, "Oh, that poor guy." So how did he do that?
Changes, yeah.
How did Hitchcock do that?
It's a great film. So, okay, cool. So let's see. So Adam,
Judith?
Oh, Judith, you mean?
Yeah.
I guess we had Judith, and then we'll come back to you, Adam. Judith, do you want to take your turn? If you can unmute.
I can.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, there you go.
I don't need monsters. I just have to look at myself in the mirror in the morning.
Jeez.
Hey guys, nice to see everybody.
Yeah, your voice is doing better.
Things are getting better. All of you know me. I've had a rough couple of months. Things are starting to move forward. I didn't get the email.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I didn't get it.
Okay. I'll resend.
I'm going to go next door tomorrow and play with the puggles.
Okay.
Okay. Cool.
And let's see. I've got a lot of doctor appointments. One last surgery to do on my hand, and then I'm finished.
Great.
Great.
It's everything. I'm just so fucking, pardon my French, concerned with my health. It's just taking up so much time. But I started to write again. I've got a new pitch for Apocalyptic.
Good.
Great.
That I'm writing. I finished my biography.
Mazel tov.
And then I'm starting to, David was very kind to, I'm going to sneeze. Hold on. That was not an earthquake.
Seid gesund. Okay. Three.
I went a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, David.
And one thing I should mention is that people are asked to mute their mics if it isn't their turn, just so we don't get a lot of cross noise. Thanks. Go for it.
What was I going to say?
Your bio.
Oh yeah, my bio's done, and you were kind enough. I'm starting to work on the Dragon movie and integrate your and I want to. I've got a new pitch which I'd like you to. I'll send it to you. And that's about. I need to get back on the table too, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
That's about it. So I'm starting to work again. It's been a rough journey, but I don't let it get me down. Just keep on going.
Great. 3 cheers.
It's great to see everybody.
Yay. Good to see you too, Judith. So,
and soon I'll have something really interesting to report.
Cool. That's great. We look forward to it. So,
look, oh, by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt. Hi, guys. They said my scene in the movie came out really well.
That's good.
So I'm happy about that.
Great. That's great. Well, congratulations.
I'm going to mute myself now.
Okay. So, Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Yes. Our next question is from the Leviathan.
Okay.
Who asks, would you and Michael Straczynski be willing to come onto a live stream with Overlord DVD and Anna, That Star Wars Girl, and talk about Babylon 5 and Sliders?
Probably Joe would want to talk solely about Babylon 5. I'd be happy to come on my own and talk about the variety of the things I've done, but I don't think it'd be probably a great idea for Joe and myself to be together on that show. So, but you can ask Joe what he wants, and but he's really the main guy on Babylon 5, and now that they're rebooting it, I think he probably have a lot to talk about. So he might want to just be a solo act, but you can ask him. I mean, let's put it this way: ask him first, see what he says, and then I'll be happy to be interviewed under any circumstances. Okay. Cool.
Sounds good.
Great. So why don't you take your turn, Adam?
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Actually, let's do Earl first because he's waiting on. He has to log off soon.
Okay. Fine. Great. Okay. So Earl, go for it.
Oh wow! Thank you. I didn't expect that. I was just checking in. So Earl F. Smith, composer and sound editor, sound designer. Life's been good. Got over COVID. Got a small cough. Now dealing with some allergy stuff, but nothing medication can't handle.
Good.
Been working on a piece for 2 cellos and jotting notes down for another piece for wind quintet and another piece for solo voice. All that I hope to have written by the 1st and have recorded by the December 1st. So that I've got 4 other films that I'm working on slowly, but obviously behind from COVID. So, but that's about it with me.
Okay. Well, good to see you as always. So,
good to see you.
Yeah, glad you're better. 3 cheers! Yay! Yeah. Is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yes. We have a question from Rose Kirby.
Great. Hi, Rose.
She says, "Hi, Mr. Sci-Fi. How many cast pictures are there of Space Command?" I think that was referring to the perks. In total, which I don't think we offered that as a perk.
There's
like all of the cast pictures. It was just random cast.
Well, we've got a ton of publicity photos from the various shoots, but we have lobby cards, we have signed photos of a number of our actors, and so David Bartlett and Adam would be the ones to talk to later about that.
He's like this one. You can write to me about that.
Yeah.
It's kind of a complicated answer because there are different versions. Different. Some are signed, some are not. Some have been names. It's hard to answer.
Yes, right. But absolutely, we have a wide variety of items, to say the least. Yeah. So great.
And Mark, while we're on that subject, I've got my email in the chat if anybody wants to reach me for any reason.
Great. And is that on the Mr. Sci-Fi chat as well, David?
I'll put that in the
Adam,
Mr. Sci-Fi chat.
Terrific. Excellent. So Adam, do you want to take your turn now?
Yeah, I can take my turn now.
Great.
And then I'll put the email in the chat after that. So, for those who don't know me, my name is Adam Sartain. I am an actor, a voice actor with over 78 different voices, accents, and impressions. And I am an associate producer on Space Command.
Yay!
Yay!
Last week I began working on the Los Angeles Haunted Hayride as a songwriter.
Great.
With an accommodation. So,
yes.
For those who don't know, I was in an accident back in August, a car accident, and it messed up my back. I got hired to be a scare actor. Opening night, I aggravated the injury on my back, and that was due to standing and a lot of walking and everything. So I went to my chiropractor, who said no prolonged standing or walking, which I thought meant I was gonna get fired or laid off at least. And turns out they liked me, so they got me a chair to sit in. So I'm scaring from a chair. I'm a chair scarer.
Good.
I still get people.
Cool.
And they got me a better parking spot.
Oh, wow.
So that I don't have to walk so far. So that's been working out very good, and I can't wait to go back tomorrow for another rant.
Great.
Yeah. Other news, I still have another voiceover thing due that I've been putting off, but I need to do it. Basically, vocalizing a pitch deck, which I haven't done before, but it's fun. It's kind of a narration thing, I guess, essentially. Almost like a trailer type of thing. So that'll be fun. And I know what I want to do, and I have the material. I just need to do it. So make the time. And then also my podcast, Inside Animation, is currently on hiatus, but not to worry, I will definitely be having more. I just confirmed a new guest coming up. So I'm probably just going to wait and build up a bunch of recorded episodes and then launch season 2 starting in January is the plan.
Cool.
But I mean, season 1 has 19 episodes already. So if you haven't listened to it, I highly recommend it. I talk with anyone and everyone involved in animation, from PAs to executive producers. So and what they do and how that fits into making animation. I even have a cosplayer on my
cool.
I've even interviewed a cosplayer.
That's fun.
And how that's the final reach of an animated series. So I think that's it for me.
Actually, Adam, given what you were just saying about cosplay, another person would be really fun to interview at some point would be someone who plays an animated character at like Disneyland or one of those places, like someone who has to be Daffy Duck or Donald Duck or Minnie Mouse or something, or that would be very interesting to talk about how you're trained up to do that and what some of the challenges are and all of that. So
definitely,
because I remember there was a lawsuit years ago where some kid, I think, was bothering Goofy and Goofy kicked him. So there you go.
Well, it's better than no.
Yeah. Anything else you need?
Yeah.
Anything else you need, Adam?
No, I think that's it.
Cool. Well, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Let's move on to the next Mr. Sci-Fi question, which would be from Bruce Moore in Kentucky.
Kentucky's a good state.
And he asks, how many, if any, unproduced scripts are there written by Rod Serling for either TV or film?
A lot.
And are there any plans to make them?
Yes. I'm actually pursuing a new project called Rod Serling's After Twilight that would shoot some of those unmade scripts. And they also thought Rod used to dictate everything he wrote, letters, speeches, scripts, everything. He'd lie by the pool in the back of his house and dictate into a recorder, and then his secretary would type it up, and then he'd make hand corrections. And they thought that all of those recordings were lost, and they recently found 300 hours of them in a couple of college archives. And so I'm proposing a new series that would be Rod narrating the show from those recordings, and we'd be making unmade Serling scripts as well as scripts by other writers. And there's a lot of unmade Serling scripts. First of all, there's a lot of scripts he wrote during the live era of television that have not been seen since then because there was no recording of those shows. And then there's scripts he wrote for Twilight Zone, Night Gallery, a lot of other stuff that never got made. There's a bunch of really cool material. So absolutely. So I'm currently in negotiations with the Serling family and the Serling estate to see if we can make that show. So we shall see what happens. So cool. So David, do you want to take your turn at this point, or what would you like?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Actually, let me go next.
Okay. You mean after Dave?
After, yeah.
Okay, Dave, go for it.
Oh, hi, everyone. Dave Edison here, editor and stuff. It's Better Space Command. We've been doing a lot this week regarding getting one scene that we patched up in the first hour of the show. We went back in and did a little work on that because somebody who shall remain nameless had a brilliant idea of how to make that scene more effective, and it is. And that will be that first episode will be paired with the second episode, and we will have a 2-hour thereabout pilot to present to you ASAP, if not sooner.
Cool.
So we're getting there. We've got some more VFX in. I sent that scene over to David Bartlett, who will be doing the color correction on it, because David doesn't have quite enough on his plate. Man needs a bigger plate.
Yes.
So just moving along. Probably some other things in the peripherals that I'm not recalling, but who has that much bandwidth? So anyway, just moving along, staying well. Hope, at least I hope so, and I hope you are too.
Great.
So that's about it.
Okay.
Oh, and I guess I did mention this, but I'll reiterate it. Our late pal Michael Charles Lopez, who had a film that I edited, and that guy who I'm pointing at, Marco Gushwitz, did the sound on, and Bonnie's over there who did the music. I'm sorry, not the sound on, the color correction on, and Bonnie did the music, and other people from the table worked on it as well. Samir Yardeen directed. Is in 3 film festivals so far.
Great.
The Berlin Short Film Festival, the San Francisco Transgender Film Festival, and the Tokyo Film Festival.
Cool.
So they're submitting it to others. So we'll see how far it goes, and that's up.
Wow, great. Thanks, Dave. Yay, excellent. So, Adam, do we have another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
We actually have an Elaine question.
Wow.
Okay,
go for it.
Rare Elaine question.
Mrs. Sci-Fi. Mrs. Sci-Fi. Yeah.
Who wants to know if you can talk about the premise of your movie that you're currently working on?
Well, the piece, which is science fiction because he made me.
Yes, which is a form of spousal abuse, by the way.
Yeah, it truly is. Yeah. I like small character pieces because they come out of theater. And this is what this is
called Ashes.
It's called Ashes, and that's basically what it is. It's a piece where there's a world run by corporations. What a surprise! And it's where the Earth is going to hell, and there's one final planet, an experiment in terraforming, and everything else has gone down from being understaffed and underfunded. But it's really about. I was always very interested because I was a tremendous follower of Martin Luther King about the difference between the two kinds of courage, which are the people who can stand up against, gunfire and be really macho, and the kind of courage that Martin Luther King had, which is he was just a man who as terrified as he would not stop.
Right.
When he believed in something, he would not stop. So basically, I thought that would be very interesting, where things are going to hell in a handbasket, where these two different kinds of courage are bumping up against each other, and how that plays out. So it's a character drama in the middle of a lot of action. When things start going wrong in terms of the terraforming, it's just about how these two men survive with one another. So it's an action film, but basically it's a character-driven film where, in the end, it's just these two men locked together.
There you go. Cool. So yes, so great. So David, now it's your turn.
All right. So I'm David Bartlett. I am a filmmaker, a teacher, and a human rights activist, and I am a producer on Space Command.
Yay!
So we've got Space Command things coming up. They're simmering away. To some people's view, they would be simmering. To others, they're rather urgent, like me and Dave Edison.
Yeah.
But we've got a DVD and a Blu-ray coming out at Christmas. That's our goal. It's going to happen. We're going to make it happen.
Yes.
So that's exciting. That's right around the corner. So I'll be hot on that. First thing, well, tomorrow. We've also got sets being built for future shoots.
Yes.
Some of those future shoots are close to the future. Some are a little further. But we can do things in the shop at the studio right now. We have two studios, one that builds and stores sets and one that actually films scenes. And that's all happening right now, basically. And I'll be in the studio tomorrow if anyone wants to come down from 10 a.m. till probably 6 p.m. And we are very big on the lunches and Starbucks. And on occasion, we can even pay people here and there. So let me know if you can come. You want to volunteer, possible paid people as well. No problem. So let's see. I guess that's kind of it for the Space Command front right now. We've got a ton of fulfillment items that are being given out to the people that have purchased them. Well, they're not really purchased, they're contributed to. And Adam's in charge of that. He'll be done doing that tomorrow too. We'll be shipping out a couple of hundred pieces, which is great. And we're getting close to finishing all of those as well. That's been a gargantuan process, let's say, to take 10 years of campaigns, 6 different campaigns, and get it down to, we've got something like 64,000 individual items that have been given to people for their contributions over the years. And we're getting close to the end of having them all fulfilled, which is a big deal. Cool. So working on that too. Let's see. I kind of jumped straight to Space Command. I skipped myself. So I made my first film when I was 10 years old. And I started making more films when I was in high school, and I moved to LA in 1980 and started working on some really big movies as the assistant or the apprentice to the director or the producers. And then found my way back into very low budget movies with Roger Corman Studios, where he started people in the old days when you couldn't get any work. You went to Roger and say, I've got these skills, but I want to be a director. So he'd have you do your skills on a movie for almost nothing. And the next film he would let you direct it. And James Cameron was the production designer that I was working with. And he then turned around and made Piranha 2. And he met his girlfriend at the time, who became his wife, which is Gaylan Hurd. And then two of them made Terminator, and the rest is history. So he did that sort of thing with Ron Howard and with Martin Scorsese and Francis Ford Coppola and a bunch of movie stars and directors that have come out of that Corman world. And I was there at that time too, which is exciting. So I started working in sound editing, and I got very good at that very fast. And ended up working on Pulp Fiction and Speed and Total Recall and a bunch of other movies that were lots of fun to work on. And I left that and started doing my own films and working with people in independent films. Now I have 65 film festival awards. So I'm also Emmy-nominated producer, which is fun. That happened this year. And in 1980, I was Emmy-nominated sound editor. So I've sort of come full circle there too. So that's been fun. Anyway, I've got a lot of other things like that I could talk about, but I always want to tell a new story every week. And this story hasn't been told in a long time, so we'll consider it kind of new. But before that, the first movie I ever saw was my parents took me to a movie theater. I was 5 years old, and it was The Birds. Yeah. So while we're on the subject of The Birds, I thought that was kind of a weird little thing. Like, that explains a lot, that was my first movie. I vividly remember 2 or maybe 3 sequences of that film from the first time I saw them that are etched in my mind. So I've always had a soft spot in my heart for The Birds, which has been very cool. And I just did a film recently for Animal Rights that featured Tippi Hedren. So that was also coming full circle for me a little bit too. That was fun. So here's the story. Here's how you get a job in the film industry. The answer is with humility. I was in a meeting with Patrick Swayze and his wife, and they were doing a feature film about ballet dancing, of which Patrick and his wife both were ballet dancers back in the day. A lot of people don't know that he and his brother grew up backstage at ballet and musicals, that his mother was choreographer and dancer with, and they were excellent dancers, both of them. So they needed a sound job done on a film that they were doing about dance, and my boss did supervising sound, and I was the mixer. So the four of us are sitting in this little table with a covering and those plastic chairs that stack up, and we're talking, and I haven't said anything yet. So John, my boss, is talking to them, and they're going back and forth, and they say, okay, Patrick finally says, so David, what do you think about the film? What would you do with it? And right when I started to talk, I said, and before I could say any word, all four legs broke out from under me and the chairs shattered. I ended up on my butt, laying on my back like this. And everyone gasped like this. So I didn't know what to do. So I stood up and I did one of those Olympics gymnastics things where I turned like this to the judges and I went like this to them. And Patrick said, that's why we got the job. Because if I could behave like that under such pressure and stress with such a light touch, then it was a good fit for us. Right. And I spent a lot of time with Lisa mixing the film, and it was a good fit for us. It was great. I also got to see Patrick go to the hairdresser and come back 5 hours later with hair down past his shoulders because he was about to do some kind of a big horse riding medieval thing with long hair and stuff. And it was fun to see him with these hair extensions just a few hours later. So anyway, that was that story.
Cool.
So now what about the table email? So I run the table email currently, which really all that means is that if you want to be on the table email or you're having any issues with it, you let me know and I can help get you signed up or fixed up if you've got a problem. And all you have to do is have an email with your first and last name, full first and last name, no initials or codes or nicknames or anything. It can't be mohipi@yahoo.com. And it cannot be Yahoo. That's the big forbidden thing. Yahoo doesn't work with us, but everything else does. Gmail's the best and cheapest, free, and easiest. I recommend that. But you can do whatever you want as far as that goes, but you have to have your full first and last name. That's important. And then just send me an email with that and I'll get you set up. My email is currently in the chat here. And if you're on a Mr. Sci-Fi, because we're on the Zooms and you guys are joining us as guests, you're also welcome to join the table email under the same, with the same process. So the table email is open now to anyone that's a table member. And all you have to do is come once and you're a table member. So all of you guys that are new are table members.
Great.
You can sign up for that and get on the email of over 2,000 people. And you can network inside that. You can offer your service to people. You can see what they're up to and jump in with helping them back and forth. There's a separate table email for personal things like looking for an apartment or you want to sell a car. And all those kind of things can happen amongst us too. And it's only internal and it's monitored very carefully by our table email people so that no riffraff goes on. So it's very safe. Anyway, that's kind of it for me, I guess. Okay. Unless you can think of something, Mark.
No, that's great. That pretty much lays it all out. So thank you, David. Yay! Cheers. And one thing I should add, though, about the table email is this is just the tip of the iceberg. The table is thousands of members all around the world, and so when you sign up for the table email, you're able to send one email that goes out to all several thousands. You can get their requests as well, and so it's an incredibly powerful tool. There isn't a single question you could ask that someone would not have a really good answer for. So definitely, I would urge you all to check it out. So Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question or a Mrs. Sci-Fi question, perhaps?
Yes. Our next question is, we've got one more from Bruce Moore. This is for both of you, I guess. But have either of you seen Christopher Plummer's movie Remember? It was so refreshing to see a film that was written so well that I didn't see the ending coming. No spoilers.
I haven't seen that one. I've seen a lot of stuff Christopher Plummer is in, including Somewhere in Time, which Richard Matheson wrote, and that's a great film if you haven't ever seen it. But no, I haven't watched that one, so I'll have to check it out. So thanks for the suggestion. So
have you read that? Have you read what's called Bedtime Return? Is that what it's called?
The Matheson novel. Yeah, it was called. Right.
Novel.
Matheson wrote the novel.
Matheson wrote the novel.
Any thoughts on it? Is that very different?
Yeah, no, I can jump in on it. Matheson wrote the novel first, and then he wrote the screenplay, and he's actually has a cameo in the film. So if you look for him, Matheson basically in most of his novels, he's the main character in a fictional version. So he actually went to the Hotel del Coronado, which is this grand sort of Victorian era hotel down in San Diego, and kind of hung out there for the better part of a week, kind of living through in his mind what his character would go through. Additionally, the inspiration for that book and that movie was when he saw a photo somewhere, I think it was in a hotel, of Maud Adams, who had been one of the great stage actresses of the turn of the century. She, J.M. Barrie, when he wrote the play version of Peter Pan, wrote it with her in mind. She was the first person to play Peter Pan on stage. She was astonishingly gorgeous. And I actually have a photo of her, or a portrait of her, on my wall here in color. And it's gorgeous. And when Matheson came to one of our parties, he said, how did you come by that? Why do you have that on your wall? And, so he was very surprised that I knew who she was, and in fact had her portrait on my wall. And, but that was the inspiration. And then he wrote the movie, and of course they cast Christopher Reeves in the lead, and he was great. Jane Seymour was the female lead, and and again, like many books that are converted into films, the film is what put it on the map. And so most people would not have read the novel, but millions of people saw the movie. And so that's that story. So cool. So let's see. So Joan, you're next on my screen if you want to take your turn.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Yeah. I met Jolyn last week, and she recommended your meetings to me. And cool. I'm a writer.
Great.
I'm a writer of a long career. My resume would take all night. So I have written 40 plays. I write for stage. I've had plays off Broadway and on NPR. I won the Ernest Hemingway Prize for short fiction in 2016. So I'm still writing.
Yeah.
I'm still being published all the time. I'm published in the classic Diabolique magazine. You talk about horror stories. Yes. I love to write horror.
Cool.
And I have 3 stories in Diabolique, which was started as a journal about the Hammer films. I never had fiction until they took my stories. Then they asked me to be one of their team. Then they went out of business. But they're very popular at Comic-Con. I see the teenagers waving the magazine, which is very funny because I'm an ancient woman. My granddaughter's a filmmaker. She's made 5 short films already. And I really love writing. I'm retired professor of creative writing in the MFA program at Mount St. Mary's University in LA.
Oh, cool.
I lived in Hollywood for 23 years. And I'm in the dark right now because I moved 6 years ago up to the mountains in Lake Arrowhead. And I have turned my house into a writer's retreat. So Jolyn thought maybe some of you might like to come up into the mountains for a day and talk about writing.
Cool.
I see a hand up down there.
Yeah, David has a hand up. Yeah, and others. Yes, a number of people.
Hands, yes.
Yeah, that's great.
I live in Crestline, actually, just around the corner from Tessa Dick, Philip K. Dick's wife.
That's neat.
His widow, last widow.
Wow.
I came here because it's quiet and peaceful, and it's a lovely place to write. But I have written tons of stuff, over 40 plays. Wow. They've all been produced in major theaters or, as I said, in New York. And so Jolyn thought maybe I would really love this group. And I'm telling you, I'm excited just listening to you. What a great group of people.
Cool. Well, that's great, Joan. Well, let me
tribe.
Yeah, well, Elaine and I started the table 28 years ago when it's not COVID. We meet in person at a restaurant. We started the Zoom component when COVID came up. And as I said, we have an email where you can reach out to all several thousand members. We have offshoots all over the country, New York and elsewhere. And Elaine and I have written and produced and directed hundreds of hours of network television, and have our own studio now, and are still going strong. And I've had bestsellers in both fiction and nonfiction. Have a new book coming out in the next few months. So, is there anything you need as a writer?
I just want to be on your mailing list.
Yeah, well,
Sure,
David Bartlett, who's the one, that guy, he can make that happen. And also, obviously, your writers retreat sounds very interested in. I've never met Tessa Dick. I'm a huge Philip K. Dick fan, and we have many, I'm sure, mutual friends because I'm a science fiction writer. So that she's someone definitely that I would love to meet sometimes. So
he's the celebrity here.
Yeah. Well, it's but I mean, it's fascinating, the parabola of science fiction where. In the 50s into the 60s, the writers were earning maybe $1,000 or $3,000 for a novel. They were writing for maybe a penny a word or 5 cents a word. And then, of course, science fiction became this enormous media monster where the top movies and TV shows tend to be science fiction or fantasy. And so that's been a huge.
I love it.
Yeah, it's a huge.
And actually, Philip K. Dick only made $85 for his stories.
Wow.
At the most. You know, he was very poor until the very end, and then he died before the movie Blade Runner came out.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. At least he got to see some footage from it, and was
he saw some rushes.
He knew it would be great, but But yeah, it's amazing. Well, that's why he had to write 12 novels in 1 year. And that's pretty astonishing. Thank God for amphetamines.
He's an amazing writer.
Yeah.
I love Blade Runner.
Yeah.
I think it's just one of the most wonderful. The movie is just incredible. I've seen it 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, it's great.
Any movie that's life affirming. When a replicant wants to know what it's like to die, to be a human being.
Yeah.
That makes you feel good about being a person. You know, I think I love that movie.
That's
and
great.
I just I really think science fiction is a special talent I don't have. I don't write science fiction. I write fantasy. I have some very strange fantasy stories, but
cool.
In 2016, I won the Ernest Hemingway Prize for short fiction. So
that's great.
I've still got it, even though I'm ancient.
Yeah,
you know? And
that's okay.
I stopped, retired 7 years ago after 15 years teaching in the creative writing program.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I mean, the pyramids are ancient too, and they've done okay.
I just want to hear what everyone else is doing, and I'm just so excited to find you. And it's a miracle that Jolyn told me about you.
Well, great. Well, great to meet you, and welcome. Yay! 3 cheers.
I'm sorry it's so dark up here. It's been foggy. It's like being on a ship in the doldrums. It's very dark.
No, but that's fine, and we can see you fine. So welcome. So and just for those who are new to the table, when we started doing the Zoom, we have a simulcast with my YouTube channel, which is Mr. Sci-Fi. So when we go to Adam and say what's the Mr. Sci-Fi question, that's because we're also on my YouTube channel. And for those who are curious, you can go to Mr. Sci-Fi on YouTube. I've posted hundreds of videos, and I've got millions of hits. And
spell it?
It's Mr. Mr. Period Sci-Fi SCI hyphen FI, and you can.
What's Mr. Sci-Fi posting these days?
Well, because I'm the world's expert on the Twilight Zone, having written the Twilight Zone companion and written and or produced all the home video versions up to and including the Blu-ray, I'm posting every single day about a different Twilight Zone episode where I talk for a couple minutes about a Twilight Zone episode. And I've also been posting lately I did a very long video about the development history of the movie Dune and the novel Dune, and so forth. So there's just tons of stuff, tons of content. So you can definitely, and also the first hour of Space Command, so you can watch it there, the big project we've been shooting. So is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yes. Our next Mr. Sci-Fi question is from Usman.
Yes.
Who asks, how would you fix Star Trek Discovery?
With a hammer. Well, gee. It's I mean, well, okay. The same way I did it on Sliders. You look at what's working and you look at what's not. And so first of all, you jettison what you don't think is working. Like, for instance, in Star Trek Discovery, there's all these characters who have not been well established. There's all of these storylines that kind of like are overly complicated. There's a lot of things flapping in the wind. So I would start with that, and then I would say, okay, well, what would I want to do with this show? And and I'd come up with a storyline that would address those things. And I would meet with all of the actors one-on-one. I know many of them, And I would say, okay, what do you think's working? What do you think's not working? And I mean, I think my favorite character on that show, and I think the one that works the best overall, is Doug Jones, Saru, because he's the one character consistently with compassion, and he's selfless. And that's really what makes Star Trek work. People who care about others more than themselves. But beyond that, even with his character, they just drop stuff. I mean, they established that he was a predator, and then it's like I haven't seen anything else that's been referencing that. And now I haven't caught up entirely with the third season or the fourth, and but I will. But I mean, it's so that's where I would start. I would. Well, you also look at your actors and you see, okay, what do they do well and what don't they do well, and you write to their strengths. And again, exactly what we did with Sliders when I was a producer on that show on the fourth season. And you also think about, see, Star Trek is a really specific challenge because there have now been so many thousands of stories within the Star Trek universe that what you ideally are looking for is a profoundly truthful story that they haven't done before, something that fits right in their mythology, but they haven't seen it. It's sort of like the needle in the haystack. And so when I came up with First Contact for Star Trek The Next Generation and Far Beyond the Stars for DS9, or even the Sulu episode for Star Trek New Voyages, it's like, okay, what's missing from what they've done? What haven't they come up with? And the fact that I've managed to do that 3 times, I think is pretty good batting average, because it's a hard one. But the great opportunity is with Star Trek, you can do deeply profound, meaningful stories, and that's why it's such a waste when they just kind of piss it away through any number of errors in judgment. So. But certainly it's not for lack of money. I mean, the production design is gorgeous. But anyway, so that's a long answer to a short question. So Bonnie, I guess you're up next. Thanks.
First of all, thank you so much. Mark was a guest on our Academy of Scoring Arts where we were talking about Twilight Zone and Eye of the Beholder and The Invaders, and very, very, very interesting. Everybody was just so thrilled with you just added so much. It was so perfect. You shared your knowledge, that's for sure. And let's see. I
wasn't able to catch that when it was on. Is that archived anywhere?
It is archived. Usually I'm hearing wow, that's odd. Usually for the members, but I'll see. I probably can let you see the get you a link to that.
Cool.
Yeah, it's great. And let's see.
And Bonnie, I just want to jump in for 1 second. The thing that was really, I found it very, very interesting. And the reason for me was, having done such an enormous amount of work on the Twilight Zone, on researching the Twilight Zone, I'd never done that deep a dive into the scores in the way a musician does. And so the fact that you guys were really cracking open the great Bernard Herrmann score for Eye of the Beholder and the great Jerry Goldsmith score for the Invaders episode of the Twilight Zone was really cool, because I got to see it from a very different perspective. And both of those were directed by Douglas Hayes, who was one of my dearest friends. He and I became very, very good friends. And so it was really fun to revisit those 2 classic episodes. I really enjoyed sharing that time with you guys.
Cool. Yeah, we really in depth study the scores. It's really cool for us composers. It's like really very enjoyable, very interesting, and food for thought, food for future ideas. And let's see, I'm working on somebody from the table is doing a musical that she's using various composers, but she's next Saturday she's going to New York, so she's taking some of my music as well as others. And then another person from the table, we wrote a Christmas song, probably do some other songwriting together. But let's see, working on Halloween songs and different things with our Some of All Music, the music community library that we have has been established. And I'm forgetting something. Oh yeah, and then with Benny Clark from the table, I'm working on arrangements for him, and just a lot of different things. Film. Hope it looks like finally a film from before COVID. Looks like it's hopefully now going to. They finished raising the funding. We should be going ahead on that soon. And I knew about two of the Berlin and the San Francisco. I hadn't even heard about Tokyo, so that's great for Mike Lopez's film. That You'll Be Okay.
That's great.
And might be forgetting something, but anyway, just a lot of different things. And anybody needing anything with music, let me know.
Yay! 3 cheers. Thank you, Bonnie. One thing I wanted to mention before I forget was they have just opened the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences Museum, and it's really cool. They've got some amazing stuff there, including the spacesuit from 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is a huge rarity. My friend Greg Jean, years ago, he built the city in Blade Runner and the mothership in Close Encounters, and just was, phenomenal guy. And one day they were clearing out a warehouse at MGM when he was working there, and he looked at the dumpster, and on top of it was the spacesuit from 2001, and he took it home. So the one at the Academy may be his. I haven't had a chance to ask him, but it's a huge rarity. And I took video and took copious photos of it when I saw it the other day, because I'd never seen it up close, and it's just an astonishing piece of work. And so I'll be doing a Mr. Sci-Fi about that pretty soon. And but I recommend you guys all go to the museum and check it out. It's really worth it.
And
so
if you didn't know, when it comes to orcs,
yes,
there were 10,000.
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
What I learned was Mark mentioned that none of the orcs looked the same, and there were 10,000 of them. They had 10,000 different makeups
on the orcs. They individually designed each one to be different.
Each one was different.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So someone obviously is in an asylum somewhere. So having worked on that. So Dave, Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Yes. Our next question is from Mark Lungo.
Hello, Mark.
And I guess he didn't know, but his question is, will there be any Space Command novels?
Yes, Maya Bonhoff has already written one. We just have to have the wherewithal to put it out. So that's definitely been written. It's actually a novelization of the pilot, but it actually has some material that goes beyond the pilot and kind of connects up the first 2-hour story and the second one. So yeah. And Maya co-wrote one of the Magic Time novels with me, and she's also a well-known Star Wars novelist as well. So she's a dear friend. So cool. So let's see. So Scott Baker, you're next. Go for it. Let's see.
Don't forget to unmute.
There you go. Got it.
Having trouble reaching over there. Okay, so hi everybody, and if I start to cry, tell me to take a breath, because I'm here because I'm trusting. I'm going to get some good. I'm going to get some good advice. Mark and Elaine, you guys were not there. You guys went to Morro Bay, I guess, where the recent Super Lotto winner or whatever bought their winning ticket. Wasn't you, was it?
No, sadly.
I'd be expecting your headline would be Space Command fully funded.
Yes.
Or forget Space Command, we're going on cruise forever. No,
yes.
Just kidding. I know that Space Command. Okay, so without getting my emotions attached to it, I had pursued for a few weeks the notion of getting that EPIC grant. I don't want to get too specific. I want to be more general so that this can be valuable for everybody. I've hit some rather major stumbling blocks in the form of people who seem to be interested, seem to be enthusiastic, ought to have followed through, not getting back to me in any sort of timely manner. And I don't know, I'm self-revealing here. I don't mind if anybody knows I'm on the autistic spectrum. And I often do not know when people are being genuine with me. And unfortunately, they sometimes don't know when I'm being genuine with them. And I do understand that because when I'm putting on the Scott Baker show, I'm putting on an act. It's not me. I'm putting on an act.
Sure.
And, yeah.
So,
but,
so Scott,
when I tell you guys that I genuinely love you and respect you.
Thanks.
I'm here because Elaine, your advice to me back when I talked about a person who I had a conflict with, a personal conflict, who I was within business with. Your advice to me was very valuable, and I'll never forget that.
Great.
So what's happening is I'm in a situation where I'm not getting the feedback that I expected from people that seemed to express enthusiasm for the project that I want to get going.
Yeah. So were these the people at Unreal Engine, or is it other people?
They're from Magic Leap, which is a tech firm that makes these artificial augmented reality goggles.
Yeah.
And Unreal teams with them on projects that involve augmented or augmented reality, basically.
Yes.
And which is what both of the projects that I wanted to start had to do with. So when I don't get feedback, I don't get the return emails, especially after I said, okay, so I'm going to email you about this. And he said, good, email me about that so that I can get you in touch with the right person, such and such.
Right.
And I don't get that. I don't get that return feedback. And I also talked to somebody because I'm simultaneously trying to start a nonprofit that goes along with at least one of the projects. Yeah. And I got, again, what sounded to me like really enthusiastic feedback, in reply, but that feedback has cut off.
Yeah, Elaine, do you have something?
Unfortunately,
it's a very common thing that happens in our industry. It's
one of the reasons that we started the table was that is really, really common to the industry.
Right.
Where Mark calls it the bright, shiny object syndrome, where you show them something and they say, oh, that's so beautiful. And then they turn over slightly and they see another bright, shiny object and they're looking at that.
And they forget about
yours. It's so beautiful. And so it's like they're hypnotized in the moment. And so they mean it in the moment, but then the short attention span theater.
Right.
So that is one of the most challenging aspects of this business.
Yeah.
Which is people sticking it through with you, people who are not.
But there are things that can help.
Yeah.
There are things that can help. First of all, never take it personally, never get angry. Okay, or at least if you feel angry, don't show it. Okay, because you always treat everybody with great politeness, great friendliness, and befriend the assistants. Anytime you call anywhere, ask when the assistant picks up, ask them their name and write it down. And when you call back, address them by name. Okay. And sometimes if they're not super busy, you can say, what's your dream? Are you looking to do, AR or whatever, in other words, engage them. And because they can be enormous allies in helping you because they decide what the boss pays attention to. But beyond that, sometimes what I do when I want executives to notice something of mine, I'll send an email the initial time. And if I don't hear back, I'll just send it again with the headline, wanted to make sure you saw this. Okay. And usually they answer that one because oh shit, I forgot to respond to that. Another thing you can do, because we're applying for a grant from Unreal Engine for Elaine's film, and now we're at a point where we're not getting feedback or response. So what we're trying to do is find someone that has worked with them previously to reach out on our behalf. Okay.
No kidding.
Yeah. And so I, again, because if they just sort of have a bad habit of not responding in a timely fashion, you have to figure out what's going to get their notice, what's going to work, and there's no hard and fast answer, but tomorrow our director of development in London and one of our investors in Space Command who works in the gaming industry is actually having a conversation with someone who did a huge Hollywood feature with Unreal Engine, and that's basically to see if he might actually become a conduit between us and the executive there, because again, nothing guarantees anything, and often there just has to come a point of trust where they trust that you're going to pull something off, that you're going to actually deliver. And that often comes from people they already trust vouching for you. And, and will we get a grant from Unreal Engine? I have no idea. I mean, we're trying our best. We certainly should get a grant given who we are and the fact that we have a studio. But, I mean, absolutely we can deliver. But, but I just try everything I can think to do.
But one of the main things is, as we were saying, you don't take it personally. It has nothing to do with you. It's a bad system.
Yeah.
And so what you really want
not just with them, but with everybody.
With a lot of people where they seem to be enthusiastic and then they're not. So the way that I deal with that is I make it very impersonal and I see it as the conduit to my audience. It's just the pipeline. They're just the pipeline to the people that I really want to reach.
Yeah.
And so it's just about mechanics. And if one thing doesn't work, you try other things.
Yeah.
You're just trying to go through the machinery, which is broken.
Yes.
Which is why there are more and more people who are becoming entrepreneurs and getting their own work out there.
Yes.
It's that you say, okay, what are some things I can do? But you never say, aren't those bad people or aren't they being bad to me?
No, you don't take it. Again, it's not, it's like, I mean.
It just happens every which way.
Sure.
And so you say, okay, what are other ways to work with these people? And if I don't work with these people, what are other ways to bring this idea to similar people?
Yes.
And then you write back to them and saying, I've gotten it out to this and this and this place. But I really hope you respond first because I really liked your stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different.
But you just go for it. Yeah, absolutely. But
fear
as
of loss is big.
Right. But as we find out more, we can certainly share it with you, Scott. And but again, just don't assume that their non-response is a no. It's because
or personal.
Because most people have so much on their plate that despite their best intentions, it's like I once saw a sign that said, "Welcome to the house of perpetual commotion." And working in Hollywood is really like that all the time. And so it's like you're in the whirlwind and you're just trying to pay attention to what's important. And it is just murder. And there are literally times when I wake up in the middle of the night and I remember an important email I was supposed to respond to like 2 years ago. And it's like, oh shit. And then, and it's like, and I mean, it's just like, it's just, there's just too much.
Even when I was in social work.
Yeah.
And I was helping person after person and the phone kept ringing. It was like person after person after person. And finally they said, when can you get back to me? And I'll say, I'll be honest with you. I have so many calls that I have to return that the best way for you to get me is call me again later because I'm right in the middle of another call because I'll never get through all these calls and I'll want to get back to you, but I'm going to have to leave the place before I get through all these calls.
Yes.
So call me again at 6 and then I can talk to you between because that was like, because I looked at my desk and there were like too many calls.
And you made sure you left by 5.
No, no, they got me, but I said, I will get back to all these people, but not in a timely fashion because I have too many people.
Right.
So sometimes, but even in social work, I really meant the best, but I kept running out of time because that was the need.
Well, there you go.
But I tried to be as understanding of people as I can and understand possibilities. Like, for example, they may have all won the lottery. And so they're trying to figure out how to spend that money and they're not even working there anymore.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. But again,
something bad might have happened in their life or something like that. And you never know. When someone shows up late or hasn't shown up and they've missed an appointment, I sometimes say, well, I hope nothing bad has happened to them, but something bad better have happened.
Yeah.
To them.
Yeah.
And then I try to, when I try to forgive people when they seem to slight me, because I perceive slights sometimes when they're not there.
Right. And yes.
Knowing that about myself is a strength, and I try to keep myself focused on, I'm focused on what's important to me.
Yes.
And the people that I go to for advice or for help or to communicate with in some way.
Yes.
That might not be what's most important to them. Frequently, it's not.
Right.
So I need to remember that, and then and as you say, not take it personally.
Right.
There's a seeming contradiction because you are also telling me something that I agree with, which is that you need to try to make a personal connection.
Yes. Well, the trick,
and I did do that.
Well, the trick is to be persistent. Well, my friend Nicholas Meyer, who directed Wrath of Khan, once said the secret to having a career in Hollywood is persistence with charm. And what he meant by that is you're persistent, you don't go away, but because you're charming and friendly, they don't get pissed off at you.
I heard you say that before.
Yes, well, yeah, I repeat myself. And the but the point being,
that's good. It was a good thing.
Yeah. Oh no, yeah, absolutely. And because I take everything personally, and I'm I can get into a very dark mood if I'm not careful. And but again, the thing is, it's not about you specifically. It's the way they do things. Most people are very chaotic in their process. This is why it's very important to form allegiances with people who do show up, who are there, who do honor their word, and collect those people. I certainly do. But just persevere, and if we find out more, we'll let you know more about how these guys work.
But I find it's like I do try and make personal connections, but if there's something weird going on, 99% of the time it's not about you.
Yeah,
it's about them, and so basically it's sort of like whatever they're throwing at me, I'm still reaching out to them because I value them for one reason or another, and I try and find out what's going on. Like taking myself, if they're like if I call up and somebody is like kind of sharp and impatient, I don't think, oh my God, I shouldn't have called. I say, wow, it sounds like it's crazy over there. What's a good time to call back? I don't think I could take your kind of pressure.
Yeah.
So I remain on their side no matter what happens.
Right.
I'm looking to see how to remain on their side.
Right. But
I am on whoever's side I'm calling, because you guys miss it. I don't know if you go back and watch the recordings of all your live streams or not, but
no, never.
Okay. Well, when I described the projects I have in mind, I mean, it's all I'm trying to make this world a better place for all the students that I have, and just everybody in general. This world needs help.
That's great.
And that's always my intention. So if I'm running into some kind of a conflict with somebody, it's not difficult for me to remember, hey, this person also is someone that I care about.
Yes.
And I also must consider they have shit going on in their lives, maybe.
Yes.
And maybe they don't have the right kind of software if they're in business.
Yes.
Which, is almost getting inexcusable. If you have a business, especially sales, the guy at Magic Leap was a salesman, but he sells on a large scale, and I was, I know that I impressed upon him some of the prospects for the project I want to do.
That's great.
But I'm taking away from what you're saying on the personal side. Don't take it personally.
Yes.
And on the action side, be persistent, but be charismatically, charmingly persistent.
Or just warm and friendly. I mean, that really warm and friendly translates, and interested in other people, because that translates as charm. And so it doesn't have to be a big song and dance. The other thing I would say, and this has worked extremely well for me throughout my entire career, and also as I've observed in my mentors, not putting all your eggs in one basket is very useful. In other words, having a fallback or more than one fallback. So in other words, you say, okay, that's, by the way, why I work on book projects and TV projects simultaneously, because again, no matter what rejections I get, I've always got something that's actively in motion, and that helps a lot. It helps keep things in perspective for me. And so again,
I can jump in here just for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
My advice is, 42 years in Hollywood, and believe me, that is the best advice. If you're friendly and you're persistent, they'll start to feel bad because they're not responding.
Yeah. It's
I don't
true.
want to make people feel bad.
Well,
long enough.
Yeah.
They'll finally get back to you just because they feel guilty.
Yes.
And then the other thing is, flip it to their side. This is what I do sometimes. What's it like on their end to hear from me and others? How many people want an Unreal Engine grant?
Yeah. Yes.
They said they're having trouble giving them away.
Well,
that's what puzzles me.
There's different reasons. You might be the exception that they're looking for.
But anyways, persevere and let us know how it all goes. Okay, Scott?
I'm going to say thank you. Adam, apparently you were not in that NyQuil commercial, but you should have been. That
should be you in that NyQuil commercial. I want to see you in that next NyQuil commercial.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
I'll talk to the NyQuil people.
Yay! Good job. So great. So Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Yes. Our next question is from Kevin Scott 76.
See, if you were gonna really make a good joke, you would say our next question is from Scott Baker.
Actually, we do have one of those.
That's funny. But go ahead. As from Kevin. Yes.
He says, watching the 1970 UFO show.
Yes.
What a gem. Do you think it influenced any other shows or movies, or was it just reflecting everything else at the time?
I don't think it had a huge impact because it wasn't widely seen in the way that Star Trek would have been, for instance, here in the States. It was done by Jerry Anderson, who I worked with when I wrote for Space Precinct. He did a lot of great shows with marionettes like Fireball XL5 and Supercar and so forth, and then did some live action movies and TV shows, including UFO and Space Precinct and Space 1999. And he had a vision, and his model work was really great, and the design of the stuff he designed was terrific, and it had the costumes and the wigs were really strange in that show, but it was it's worth checking out. It's a fun show, and Ed Bishop, he was, I don't know if he was Canadian or American, but he was sort of the Brit. He was in England, and whenever they needed someone to play an American, either on radio or on television, they'd often use him. And but that's an interesting thing, because in UFO he had this sort of white hair, this gray wig. If you look closely in 2001: A Space Odyssey, he's in it. And when there's one scene where Haywood Floyd is traveling to the moon, and the captain comes by to talk with him for a few minutes, and it's all MOS, it's without sound, but that's Ed Bishop if you look closely, and with his normal brown hair. So that's a little piece of movie and television trivia. But speaking of Jerry Anderson shows, we're currently working with Barbara Bain on both Space Command and on Sweet Haven, the show we're doing with Rockney O'Bannon. So lots of talent there. Lots of talent. So
little side thing on Jerry Anderson. I don't know if it was in the British version, but over here, one of the best ever theme songs was the closing theme on Fireball XL5, which really is a swinging kind of song.
Yeah.
But the coolest thing about it in recent years, when Jerry Anderson died, there's video on YouTube of that song being done by Neil Gaiman, along with his wife's band.
That's fun. That's very fun.
Surprise to the audience.
That's cool. Well, thanks for that, Dave. So on my screen, the next person is Carol Field. So go for it, Carol.
My 2 pairs of glasses on. Thank you. Thank you again, Mark and Elaine, for all of this. You are so appreciated.
Of course.
Really, truly. Here's another list. Okay, Carol Field, available for table reads and singing needs. So whatever you want. I miss going to auditions, so whatever you need for table reads, call me. I put my phone number in the chat. And thank you, Scott, for being protective. But that's my answering service, not my home phone. But that's sweet of you to be concerned. Thank you. What's the difference between thriller and horror?
A thriller is suspense. So like a Hitchcock film like North by Northwest, you could say that's a thriller, perhaps, or Rear Window, particularly. Rear Window is a thriller. Horror is more about the scares. It's a very subtle line between suspense and something that's actively scary, that's actively horrifying. It's just suspense is not meant, like at the end of most thrillers, things come out okay. Like North by Northwest, Cary Grant ends up with Eva Marie Saint. They've solved the crime. Blah blah blah. Dial M for Murder. But horror is much darker, and it deals with very primal fears often. Fear of the dark, fear of death, fear of sharp objects, whatever, fear of monsters, and monsters, I think, harken back to that. I mean, we have very, very, very ancient wiring as human beings, and the two of the big things that rule us is something stalking us? Are we being preyed upon? Is there a predator out there, particularly in the night? And the other is, who are we with that makes us safe? Who is our group versus who are the outside group or the outside individuals who are trying to kill us, to harm us? And so horror films prey on that, feed on that very hardwired sense of danger. And so that's a big part of it.
It's really helpful. Thank you. So thriller is a little bit more psychological, and horror is some jump scares.
And also horror, there are two different kinds of horror. There's reality-based horror, which might be more the serial killer kind of horror, Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Psycho. Then there's fantasy horror, where that might be the Freddy Krueger movies, that might be the zombie movies. So in other words, there's horror that does not have a fantasy element, and there's horror that does. And but they all involve murder in one way or another, death, dismemberment,
that's my favorite.
Stuff like that. Yeah. So those are the differences.
Okay, that's really helpful. And what's the difference between a pitch deck and a sizzle reel?
Pitch deck is like a document. So a pitch deck would be like either a physical document, like a book that you could flip through, that would give you the basics with visuals of your project, or it could be like a presentation. A sizzle reel is specifically a video. So that
it seems like they can cross over.
No, they can't. A sizzle reel is like a movie trailer. A sizzle,
like a trailer. Okay.
Yeah. And a pitch deck is much more like a series Bible with pictures.
Thank you. That's great.
Right.
I'm reading this because it sounds like the name of your book, but it's not.
Mm-hmm. Right. Green Lights.
It's so freaking good.
Yeah.
It's just very interesting because look what he did. Like on purpose, he made the book jacket shorter than the book.
Mm-hmm.
and throughout the book, he has all these chicken scratches and photographs. Like it's sort of a cross between a book and a scrapbook.
Huh. Wow.
It's very clever. It's real good. It's kind of sad.
Mm-hmm.
It's really wow. He's really overcome a lot of insane obstacles in his life. Mainly mean people.
Yeah, and that's Matthew. That's Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, sorry, it's Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
And I was in a horror commercial, and I can't think of the friggin' product. It was a gorgeous Victorian house downtown LA. I'm walking through with a candle, and the whole place was black.
Yeah.
Walking the candelabra, and I think I got the role because I screamed well.
There you go. That helps.
Why could I scream? And
yep.
Why can't I think of the product?
Well, just to let you know, Carol, lead actresses who are in a lot of horror movies are called scream queens. Yeah.
Okay, I'll take that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm scribbling around with that horror film. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and I think Mercury goes out of retrograde in a couple of days because I have all these cancellations this week, and I will go. There's another one. And it's so true, Scott. Can't take any of that personally.
Mm-hmm.
Can't take any of it. You'll go nuts. That's all for tonight.
Great.
Yay. Good to see you.
Great. So, Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Yes, and believe it or not, it is a Scott Baker question.
Yay!
So, the question is, or he says, one of my favorite sci-fi themes is the paradigm-shifting discoveries in such stories as Forbidden Planet, 2001,
mm-hmm.
Martian Chronicles, etc. Can you recommend others of that ilk?
You mean, well, by paradigm shifting, what do you mean? You can speak.
Well, since I can tell you, I mean, like where there's some discovery that just changes everything for the universe that the characters is in. The discovery of the monolith, the discovery of the civilization under Forbidden Planet.
The Krell. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. There's certain movies and TV shows and books that have that. Let me think. I mean, it's an interesting question. I would really have to think about it. I mean,
there's a new TV show called La Brea where they fall through a sinkhole.
It's Land of the Lost. It's Land of the Lost.
Yeah. But like for instance,
it's awful.
Yeah,
it's Land of the Lost.
Yes. Day the Earth Stood Still. Day the Earth Stood Still sort of is that. It's a paradigm shift because of he lands and and it's a Christ parable. Actually, that movie. It's a great film for those who haven't seen it.
How about the invention of the modern zombie?
Well, I mean, yes, Elaine was suggesting that when George Romero invented the modern zombie as a monster, that was a paradigm shift. Yeah, I agree. I'd have to give it more thought, Scott, but let me mull on that. I'll come up with stuff. So let's see. So next, Mark Gagashowitz, ladies and gentlemen, it's Mark Gagashowitz, ladies and gentlemen, yay!
I feel like such a celebrity.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Hi, how you doing? So busy week, really tired. Got my outputs done to send off to the film festival. A little concerned about them because they looked great on my monitors and everything, and then we decided to put it on 4K TV, and they look so great, but they're not going to be shown on 4K. So people are telling me, trust your monitor, my color monitor is a 4K monitor, so but it is going to be showing next Thursday at 4 o'clock in front of a puppet horror film called Frank and Zed. It's not only a horror film made with puppets, but it's boasted 96% on Rotten Tomatoes with 24 reviews, so that ought to be fun. And anybody who knows me, I'm sure the night's going to go great. My film's going to show perfectly because it's just too much of a coincidence that my movie would show in front of a puppet horror film. How many of those could possibly be out there? That
yes. Cool.
So I'm really looking forward to. We're actually going to make the trip out to Utah. It's a 7.5-hour trip to go. It's the very first time it's screening anywhere, so I figure I should be there. Not only that, it will allow me to see, how it's presented and know if I have to make any adjustments or not.
Cool.
So looking forward to that. Website's Underexposed Cinematic Treasures. Check it out. It's recommendations for underseen, unseen, misunderstood, movies that deserve, a second chance. If you haven't seen it, check it out. And then the editing is, I just started a new gig today, or actually it's going to start tomorrow. That was going to be an assistant gig, but turning out that I'm actually probably going to be doing actual editing, because the guy who hired me already did all the assistant stuff. He just was too eager to get started. So that's going to actually turn into an editing gig, which is where I should be anyway. And then, of course, there's the Space Command behind the scenes. I've been looking at a lot of the stuff that David Edison has been handing me.
Cool.
Watched the first 2 episodes again.
Great.
I watched something you did on Mara Furlong because I know you want to do a little tribute thing
to her. Yeah. Yes.
So now it's just time for me and the big boss man to get into a conversation.
Let's plan on a talk tomorrow. You might want to reach out to Angelique and have her schedule a Zoom call for tomorrow. I mean, I think that'd be a good idea.
I can do that. I have her email.
Yeah.
And then it'll just have to be later in the afternoon.
That's fine.
Because everybody wish me luck. I'm going to the doctor, check out my arm.
Great.
Which for the last 9 months, I just want to chop it off. It hurts so much.
Jeez, that's not good.
But they did x-rays and said they found nothing. So I don't know exactly what it is. So it's probably nothing, but I got to exercise it more. Other than that.
Mark?
Yes.
Be sure you include me on that Zoom, Mr. Gashowitz, so I can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, it seems like a lot of the stuff that Dave has been sending me that you've been asking for will be relatively easy. Maybe it just needs an intro on the front.
Yes.
Yes. Deleted scenes. What are you going to do? You're just going to put an intro on the front that says this is what the scene was, right?
Right.
So we'll get deep into that because it is already tomorrow's going to be the 8th, and we need this done by the 7th of next month.
Cool.
So other than that, I'm moving forward on a couple of personal projects. I'm reaching back into the werewolf film. Pulled that out. We're going to do a rewrite on that to maybe try and once again make. And I'm thinking about approaching a writer in particular. I haven't done this yet, but somebody that I trust and somebody that I'm friends with to write something based on another one of my ideas. Because if I try to do all of this at once, it will never get done. So hopefully we can strike a deal, because that would actually be a movie we could do really cheap. I can get all the locations for free and stuff like that. And it's just time to move forward to the next thing. I might need, after I go to this screening next Thursday, if I find some stuff, if I find that I need to do some work on it, I might need a color correctionist, because what happened was we had a black zombie and he was shot really dark. So like when we got the footage back, Mark and Elaine weren't there when I showed up the next Thursday. You couldn't see the zombie's face at all. And so when I brighten it up so you can see it, parts of him start to wash out and feel very dull. And I don't know how that's going to project. And I might need somebody a little bit more above my pay grade in color correction to help me fix that.
Mark, how many shots are there?
There's like probably 8 or 9 shots.
I could probably help you.
Okay, well, let me see how it projects first. And if there's a problem, I will definitely reach out to you.
Okay.
Okay, cool. That's it.
Yay! Cheers. Excellent.
If you'll excuse me, I'll be right back.
She's going to walk the dogs. So, yeah. Okay, bye, Elaine. Thanks. So great. But yeah, and thanks, Mark. And it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
I was trying to think of a Mr. Sci-Fi question, but I just...
Nah. To hell with Mr. Sci-Fi. You know, but it's fun to go through all of this stuff to consider as extras for the Space Command Blu-ray and DVD. That you know, we have such a enormous. I mean, we've had such a long production and pre-production phase. I mean, you know, our initial Kickstarter campaign was in 2012, and if my watch is correct, it's now 2021. So we're talking 9 years, and we rolled camera in 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, etc. So it's been quite a journey. So it'll be I mean, I think we probably should do just one featurette called Mark Ages, you know, and it would just be you know, a time sequence thing where I just turn gray, and it's like the portrait of Dorian Gray quickly rotting. So anyway, but Adam, is there
do another one called Mark Ages Everyone?
Yes, it's true. Except you look exactly the same, Dave. That's the problem.
That's the problem.
Yeah, Dave has a style that will work all the way from
Dave,
like
Dave has a style that will work
from
all the way from like
20 to 70.
Yeah, you should see the picture in the attic.
20 to 70.
Yeah. Okay, great. So Adam, is there a Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Great.
And
is there a sci-fi question?
oh, I'll wait for Dave to.
Yeah, we're getting an echo, Dave. So yeah.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
There we go.
Good.
I was going to say the production babies from the original shooting are now teenagers.
Well, that's actually the interesting thing is that the one who plays Bob Picardo's kid, he was like 10 when we shot that, and now he's like, you know, 16 or 17, and so we actually have him in Ripple Effect as a teenager. And I've been talking to him about, you know, playing the adult version of his character, and we're basically doing a science fiction version of Boyhood, and you know, that's pretty amusing. You know,
we did it on purpose.
It's all part of the grand.
Just for him.
Yes, it's the grand plan. Exactly. Yes. And
all right. So
you know,
the question is from Bruce Moore. And he says, any thoughts on the new Foundation series?
Yes.
And do you think the new Star Trek Strange New Worlds will be sufficiently different from other Star Trek shows?
With Foundation, I've watched the first 3 episodes, and the problem I have is, you know, it's the reason Foundation has been so difficult to adapt is because it covers, you know, a long period of time and doesn't really have the same characters going through all of it as you would have in, you know, a standard science fiction storyline. And so as a result, you know, it's like, okay, you introduce all these characters in the first episode or 2, and then suddenly they're gone, and it's all these new characters, and they're trying to have the Emperor get cloned again and again so that you can have some continuity with an actor. But you just watch this thing and you go, well, who's who? What's what? Who are these people? What are these planets? Who are these races? And it's very hard to care about anybody or anything because of that. Now, maybe it'll settle down after a while. I don't know. The visual effects are spectacular. The design in general is astonishing. Many of the actors are very, very good. But it's got that problem about why should I care? And that's a very big challenge. And I'm rooting for it. My friend Roxanne Dawson has directed some of the episodes, but man, it's just not. Yeah, I mean, we'll see, because right now you have to be intrigued enough by the idea to take the ride, but you certainly are not engaged in these people yet, or at least I'm not, and that's very problematical. So, and what was the other part of the question, Adam? I'm sorry. Oh, Star Trek New Voyages. Yeah, I love Strange
Star
Worlds,
Trek,
Strange New Worlds. Yep.
Strange New Worlds. Yeah.
Well, the best part of that is that it's the first show I've ever heard of where the pilot was shot in 1964 and the show was greenlight in 2021. I think that's just wonderful. And I've always liked that version of Star Trek with Captain Pike and Number One and so forth. I'm a little concerned when I saw the video that had all the new cast members, because it's sort of like, don't clutter it with too many characters. Don't clutter it, because it's like in the original Star Trek, that triumvirate of Spock, McCoy, Kirk, and then the supporting characters, they recognized that how to get us interested in characters, and they even managed to do that in Star Trek The Next Generation. But if they have too many characters that are underdeveloped, it will weaken the show. Additionally, I've heard that they're going to be doing individual storylines per episode. I think that's a good idea. That's what the Orville's been doing, and it'll certainly give it a chance. See, the reason it's a good idea to do that is if you do an arcing storyline over an entire season, that story has to work. That story has to be good, because people are putting in like 10 hours or whatever to watch this story. On the other hand, with like a show where you have each story per hour, well, then if there's a bum episode, you'll say, well, next week maybe it'll be better, and if you're engaged in the characters, you'll take that journey. And so we'll see. We'll know soon. We'll know soon. But let's see who. Galinda, I guess you're next on my screen.
Hello, beautiful people. I'm so happy to be here. I'm Galinda Bruton. I'm currently tech support for a video game company in Austin, Texas, and aspiring to be many, many things. Want to be a writer, want to be a filmmaker, want to be recognized, but then again, don't always. That social anxiety always comes into play.
Sure.
A little bit of news. Last week I mentioned one of my hamsters has escaped. Well, Victoria's home. A little bit lighter than she was. I can tell them apart now because she lost about a third.
Wow.
It looks like.
Huh.
But Lucia and Victoria spent about 2 days fighting after I put them back together, but they've digested again, and none too worse for the wear. They still hate me. I'm okay with that. I let them. I feed them well. I spoil them rotten and give them as much space to run in as I can, and to try not to forget to lock the door. But yeah, the 3 Yorkies and one of the cats had cornered her by a trash can. And shortly after I logged out of here, I heard my roommate call out, and she comes running to me with this little tiny furry potato screaming angrily. If you've never heard an enraged hamster scream at you, it's pretty funny. Their "I hate you" face is really hilarious. But that was my big news. Also, I have an offer. I have 2 offers of a place to stay. So
good.
When my roommates move, I'm not going to just be homeless out there flying in the breeze.
Good.
And still looking for one where I can keep my cat. No real news, no really important news. I mean, I'm very thrilled that the hamster is safe and alive, because that's a major concern if they don't get enough water while they're running loose.
Yes.
You lose them. And that's the hardest part is to make sure they're getting water when they're out. And you don't know where in the house they're. She made it downstairs this time, though. Last time I caught her because she made it halfway down the stairs, and she was so mad because I could see the sun. I was almost there.
Yeah.
But
that's funny.
I'm usually good with critters. Most of the time I get along with them. And every now and then I come across little rodents and stuff. I have a hard time befriending. And little birds, they seem to be they're harder to communicate with. But that this is an unusual one, but I'm not taking that personally either.
That's funny.
It's going to feature in the storyline somewhere.
Cool.
The enraged hamster thing is going to have to go in there somewhere.
But, well, that's fun, Galinda.
Really, really want to express how much I appreciate y'all. When you build a community, and it's this much love and this much support, that's coming from the top down.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Your spirit draws in good people that seek kindness and want to believe that kindness is currency. And it's very inspiring.
Well, thanks. Thank you.
I stumbled into this without a plan of making a film, and I'm so inspired that I feel like I have to put something out now. It's like, wow, it's like I got all these great ideas here.
Yes.
And, I really appreciate it.
It's funny because you're talking about the hamster. You reminded me of a short film that Elaine had wanted to make some years ago called Little Dogs, and it was about a tour bus that gets lost in the Hollywood Hills, and they end up seeking shelter in this big, scary, creepy house, and they find themselves under attack by little chihuahuas, a mob of killer chihuahuas. And I remember two of the jokes in it. One was that there's this creature outside frantically clawing at the door, and they look out and it's a cat. So then they let the cat in, and they hear this zipper sound, and there's an empty cat suit lying on the floor, and one of the dogs has gotten in disguise. And one of the other gags was someone's murdered, and we see them being dragged out of the room, and we don't see what's dragging them, but they're being dragged by little tiny jerks, and because it's a little dog. And so it was a fun idea. I wish Elaine had made it. It was but in terms of filmmaking, Mike Lopez, who we just lost recently, he made a short film that really, he stars in it, and it really captures who he was. And for those of us who knew him and miss him, it was really great to see that short film, because you really get a feeling of what a kind man he was, and what his life was like. So film really can preserve some of the best of us, as writing can, of course. So anything else, Galinda? Anything else you need?
No, I am sorry that I did not get to know Mike better. When I was just in the YouTube channel watching and listening, I got so excited whenever I would hear his voice.
Yeah.
And the idea that I'm actually we'll get to see his films at some point, thrills me.
He was a good one.
Super supportive of what he was doing.
Yeah, he was.
It's really, that kindness is currency thing. I'd really like to get that to catch fire in our culture.
Yes. Well, I mean, I'm very aware that I can't change the world, but I can be my best self, and by being that, it has a ripple effect. And so Elaine has absolutely taught me that. So, well, great. Well, it's great seeing you as always, and farewell. I mean, fare thee well. So, yeah. So, Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question?
None currently.
Look
looks
out.
Like we are caught up.
Well, I will mention one thing, which is that I am going to be doing a Mr. Sci-Fi soon on why I love spacesuits. And because for me, spacesuits are emblematic of science fiction. And so I have now, because of Space Command, I own a number of spacesuits. And I'm going to, do a little thing on the one I saw at the Academy Museum, this 2001 one. But tonight usually I have the table pointing toward some of my spacesuits. And tonight I have it Mr. Sci-Fi, so they can see it, because I've actually added one to the corner. And if you look closely, you can see there's the one we used in the George Takei Star Trek episode, which was a recreation of the Tholian Webb spacesuit. And that actually has Leonard Nimoy's life mask in it. So that's actually his face. And then behind him, the yellow spacesuit is from Outland, the Sean Connery movie. In front of that is the spacesuit from a terrific episode of The Twilight Zone called Death Ship, that was originally made for Men into Space in 1959, a TV show, and was also used in The Outer Limits. And then behind that is a spacesuit from a TV show called Defying Gravity, with a toy space helmet that I actually had as a kid, which was from the Men in Space TV show. They marketed a space helmet, and that's what that is. So and then over there we have the salvage suit from Aliens, and over there we have a spacesuit from a Red Planet, and the one that my mom bought me when I was a teenager, or 12 actually. So there's really cool stuff. So anyway, that's enough about that. So let's see who Brian.
Oh, and Guylinda, I strongly recommend that if you start up your own production company, you name it Angry Hamster Productions.
Or Lost Hamster. That's good too. Yes.
I'm not echoing too much. Kit Craft, the longtime hobby shop in the Valley. You're not understanding me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am.
Okay. Kit Craft is closing after all these years.
Wow.
And apparently they're selling off their life masks.
Wow.
that have been hanging up forever. So maybe that's a place for you to stop in at.
Sure, we'll talk. Great, thanks, Dave. And also, I was waiting for you to send me those images of the spacesuit that you had seen, so I'd like to see that. So great, Brian Hassick, you're next on my screen.
Hey, yeah, Brian Hassick, filmmaker, writer, storyboard artist, kind of do everything. Tomorrow I'll be a Space Command volunteer.
Yay! The proud, the few.
And
again,
yeah,
he's been down a bunch of times.
Veteran volunteer now.
Great.
It's awesome. It's because I'm not allowed to pay him. It's weird, but he still comes in.
Actually, you know that they actually cut off the federal unemployment. So if you want to pay me, that's fine now.
Oh, I see. Okay,
cool.
But no, yeah, I was gonna just say about Scott. I mean, I know I'm not. If it was company, I would be different. But with phone, I'm horrible. I just realized. I think David Bartlett knows this. Carol knows this. I think you called me about a month ago. It was the day before I switched my phones, and I forgot to call you back. But Mark figured it out. He's the only one I think I ever talked to on the phone because he emails me with a time and confirms it. So it's like a day. But yeah, right now I'm just doing some writing. I'm available to help and work. And yeah, just thought I'd stop in.
Cool. Well, great. Well, good to see you. 3 cheers. Yay. So, Adam, is there another Mr. Sci-Fi question by any chance? Nope.
Nope. Still no new questions.
That's okay. That's absolutely fine. The one thing I'll tell you that's fun is they are about to auction off the spaceship set from Prometheus, which is one of the greatest spaceship sets ever built by anybody. And so I actually put out a video saying if anyone wants to step up with about $100,000, we could use that in Space Command for for that to acquire that bridge. But I don't think that's going to happen. But my God, it's a beautiful design. The way they got that design was my friend Ron Cobb, who was one of the great designers in film in Alien and Aliens and Total Recall and on and on. He designed this astonishing spaceship bridge for Alien. And they didn't use it, but it was incredibly beautiful. And so Ridley Scott brought back that design for Prometheus, and that's really cool, really, really cool. So let's see. Next, I have Ben and Emily. You're next on my screen. There you go.
Yeah, Mark, I love that story about the little dog got into the house. He put on a suit or something. Cat suit.
I was mentioning little dogs. Yeah, it's fun.
Are you gonna finish that, or is that something you worked on years ago? Or what?
That was one of Elaine's, and so that's up to Elaine. We can definitely discuss it. I mean,
finish it.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it's a great film.
I mean,
we have a little Yorkie mix.
Yeah.
And she's just.
That would knock the young kids out. I mean, you want to talk about parents get rid of their kid, put them in front of that TV, and they would have a ball.
That's great.
That's fun. That's fun.
Yeah, well, what's going on with me? Me and Bonnie's still working on track. Like last night, we were going through a manuscript about the strings and stuff we were doing. She's fantastic with her ideas. So pretty soon we're gonna have something for you to hear.
Oh, great. Oh, terrific. That's great.
Elaine, the story's about this lady got married and the guy left her, so he called her up. So she said, "Why did you call me after all these many years?" I could tell you I love you if that's what you want to hear. But the truth of it, I haven't even thought of you. So that's what Bonnie and I are working on. That's just the lyric of the lady. I don't know why you called me. I haven't even thought of you. So we're gonna have something for you guys here soon.
Oh, fun. Okay, great.
It's good seeing you and finish that, please, because I want to be in the floor just laughing and rolling around on the floor.
Okay. Okay.
Since so many people have gotten pandemic pets this past year, that's relatable because you have your dog interrupting you at work and things like that.
Yeah,
it's true. Yes.
That's just waiting to happen.
Okay. All right. Yes. No, I always like
we're
that.
all locked up and depressed. That'll open up some smiles.
Okay.
Okay. You guys, we enjoyed the setting tonight.
Okay. Okay. Good to see you.
I'll be calling you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers. Great.
Okay.
Great. So is there a Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Yikes. Oh my.
Yeah.
Attack of the Yorkies.
Yeah, exactly. Go for it.
Yes, we do have a Scott Baker question.
Cool. Yeah.
Which is, what did you think of the surprising twist on the Star Trek concept with Roy Scheider called Sequest?
Oh yeah. Well,
any inside information on that production?
Yeah, well, my friend Rockne O'Bannon created that show, and one of the things he said, which was interesting, it was Steven Spielberg production, and he said it was fascinating because when they would go pitch the show to the network, Spielberg would come to those meetings and he would pitch his heart out. And he said Spielberg by that time was already huge, and he certainly didn't need to do that, but his level of commitment to everything he was part of was 100%. And so he gave it all. He brought his A game, even though he needn't do so. It was not a great show in my opinion. I much preferred Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea when it was good. And I'm a big fan of submarine movies. In fact, we're watching Ice Station Zebra now because my friend Doug Hayes wrote the script. But it wasn't a great show. I've always loved Roy Scheider, but it just wasn't. Yeah, the visual effects weren't really there. I mean, underwater CG effects weren't really there. They weren't solid enough yet when that show was made. I remember that they built the set where the floors were metal, and that was a huge problem for them recording sound. There were just a lot of really weird things that were done. But it was a credit from my friend Rockne O'Bannon, and before he created Farscape and all the other things he created. So that's great. And it was a good try. People were trying to make it a good show, but it was just kind of one that I watched a few times, but really never got into. So let's see. Next on my screen is Alexander. If you want to take your turn, go for it. Oh, can you unmute Alexander? Are you there?
Alexander?
Can you hear us? Alexander Piatek?
Hello?
Piatek? No? You can't? What? Where are you? You just moved. Where'd you go? Where are you? Oh,
I think we lost him.
We lost him? Okay.
All right.
Then Mark O'Bannon, you're on my screen. Go for it. It's interesting how many people are sitting in darkness tonight.
Hi, everybody. I'd forgotten about the meeting, and then it's like 7 o'clock. I'm like, I wonder if they're still there. I'm like, oh, they're still here.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I've been on the telephone for like 11 hours working on this show, LA Comic Con, and we've got about, I think, 40 panels.
Great.
We still, you've got a spot for Space Command. We need to find out if you can get Babylon 5 panel going, and also I need to get a list of who's on the Space Command panel and how many people want to sign autographs, because we're about to sign autograph spaces. And so we need to, I don't know, have Dave send me info.
Yeah. David Bartlett can. We'll coordinate that. We'll make it happen.
Just if there's any hard work to be done, just go to David Bartlett.
Yes, but I think a panel that would be spotlight on Mark Zicree would be great, or a Mr. Sci-Fi panel would be great.
So you can if you want.
Yeah.
I
think.
In fact, it'd be great to do a panel where we just ask you questions about the industry, like we do
Sure.
at the table.
Sure. Well, we could do one. Well, we could do one called Greenlighting Yourself, because that's what the new book's title is. And so why don't we do that panel? I'd be happy to do that, where people can ask me anything they want to know about how to have a career in the industry. I'm happy to advise. That's fun.
Greenlighting
yourself.
And
yes.
Hey, David, can I get your email, David Bartlett?
Yeah, I think it's Dave Films, DAVEFILMS at hotmail.com.
Cool.
Dave Films at
Hotmail.
Yeah.
The one only.
And because you're featured in Space Command prominently, Mark, we could make 8x10s of you, and you could sign them.
Bring my suit, right?
Yeah.
I just had that suit. It had it in my car. I happen to have it in my car. I'm like, hey, I've got a suit.
Though my favorite thing in that regard is my friend Nick Roberts. I cast him in Star Trek and one other project, and we only saw the back of his head in each. And I suggested that he get 8x10s of the back of his head from the two productions and sign those. at conventions.
And there's something I want to tell you about. I saw this. I was on YouTube and I saw this film called Ice Planet.
And
it's got it's a pretty good film. It's 90-minute long. It's on YouTube. It's free, and it's got some really cool retro sci-fi spacesuits.
Wow.
And you need to look at it because it's just very cool.
Sure. Great.
I'll send you a link. I'll put it in the.
Please.
I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah. Great.
I think this is it. No, wait a minute. I'll put the link in the chat. So yeah, we're working on the event. So yeah, I think the deadline is like in 1 or 2 weeks. I think it's 2 weeks. So I need a list of who's going to be there and if they want autograph space.
Okay,
so
great.
I'll send you an email, David, and we can work it out. We can find it out.
Cool. Great. Sounds great.
Greenlighting yourself. I'll see if I
can.
I have 2 hours scheduled for Space Command, so it's an hour for the show and then maybe an hour to talk about it, I guess, or maybe 90 minutes for the show and a little talk.
Yeah, whatever.
And then we could do a greenlighting yourself. I forgot what day. I'll send you the new schedule.
Sure, that's fine. You bet. That'll be fun. And because I always love doing that. And if you want to do any Mr. Sci-Fi panel or anything like that, whatever you need is fine. It's exciting.
You want a booth for Mr. Sci-Fi to sit there and
Sure. That'd be fun. So yeah,
I think I gave you a 10 by 20 spot for booth.
That's neat. That sounds great. Well, we'll nail it all down. So great. Anything else, Mark?
Let's see. I did, but I forgot.
Okay, that's fine. Yay, Mark O'Bannon, ladies and gentlemen.
Alexander Bannon.
Well, yeah. So we'll come back to you in a moment, Alexander. But is there a Mr. Sci-Fi question, Adam?
Let's see. And Mark O'Bannon, I am volunteering myself. If you need a panel host or like something like that, for either
a podcast. You have a podcast.
Yeah, I'm a podcast. Inside Animation.
Great.
Okay.
So I've got it. I put it in the chat, but since you got here late, you probably didn't see it. I'll put it up again.
Great.
Yeah,
cool.
I think you sent me an email, and I just okay.
Yeah.
We got about 50 Star Trek people. They're cosplayers. They're gonna be walking around in uniforms.
That's fun. That's neat.
Klingons coming, and it's gonna be cool.
That's great. That's great.
So yes, we have a question from Drew1.
Hi, Drew.
Who says, I'm embarrassed to ask, but what is Star Trek Lower Decks? It seems quite damaging to Star Trek as a whole.
Star Trek Lower Decks is a cartoon that is set in the lower decks of the ship with the lesser officers or the lesser crew people, and it's a comedy. I've only seen a few minutes of it. People really like it. I think what Paramount is basically trying to do is maximize the potential profits of its property. Paramount doesn't have a lot of valuable properties. It's got Mission Impossible, it's got Star Trek, but compared with some of the other companies like Disney, they're trying to find ways to squeeze money out of these things. And so with Star Trek, they're doing Picard, Star Trek Discovery, the Star Trek movies, the Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks, and then they've got some other Star Trek cartoon coming up. They're just trying to find a way to ring the bell. And but it's all behind a paywall. You have to subscribe to Paramount Plus, and that's for many people a problem. So so it is. That's what it is, to answer the question. So Alexander, go for it if you're available now.
Yeah, hopefully it's working now.
There you go.
Hey guys, I've showed up before. A little about me. I veteran of the Marine Corps, and I currently work for the testing company, which sends out COVID testers to all the different productions and stuff.
Great.
Other than that, I'm Nick Rajewski's writing partner. We actually finally moved out here, so we actually live together and write together now.
Great.
Like you said, we're doing that horror competition. I'm kind of doing an examination of how the psyche is affected by overworking. So it's kind of hard doing the short with the slow burn, but I'm kind of trying to do it. I had a question, and I'm trying to remember what it was.
Well, I can mention one thing about movies that represent shifting reality. There's Repulsion by Roman Polanski. He also did a movie called The Tenant. It's basically, one of the things it's called is unreliable narrator, where the narrator is going through weird shit, and we're seeing sort of through their perspective as they disintegrate, and so there is a subgenre of horror that is specifically that. There's also another very interesting subgenre of horror called body horror. And Alien is certainly that. The Jeff Goldblum, The Fly, is that. Cronenberg, a lot of Cronenberg stuff is body horror. And so again, there's just a bunch of different ways you can creep people out, and you can do it subtly or less than subtly, or I should say more than rather. You can just gross people out. There's a million ways to do it.
I mean, even if you wanted to borrow from something, there's and it's the most unlikely source, is a thing called The Idiot, which is a Russian novel.
Yeah.
And that's based on the viewpoint character having epilepsy, a certain form of epilepsy, where he's not sure what he's seeing.
Right.
And in this particular moment, somebody seems to be following him to kill him with a knife, which doesn't make any sense. But he keeps seeing him and saying, it's not real, it's not real, it's not real. And all of a sudden, this person comes at him with a knife, and it was real. And it was like, it was so odd and so creepy, because you're saying, is it real or is it not? No, it's not. It can't be.
Yeah.
And he almost dies because he's trying to convince himself that this person is not after him.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting. It's like kind of a shift in the perspective of like, okay, it's a reliable narrator portrays themselves as unreliable.
Yes.
Or the story portrays them as unreliable.
Yeah. Well, Black Swan is another great example of that. It's of someone going out of their mind. It's there's a lot of different ways to do it, though. Actually, and again, this is Dostoevsky, The Idiot, which is very different from Steve Martin's The Jerk. But Elaine actually had a great idiot moment around that book years ago, before I knew her. She was she was on a train, and she was reading The Idiot by Dostoevsky, and this college jock tried to pick her up, so he sidled up to her and he said, "What you reading?" And Elaine said, "Dostoevsky." And he said, "Oh yeah, who's it by?" And she then was able to say, well, it's actually The Idiot.
It's another great movie.
Yeah, it was good.
There's another great movie out there about somebody who's kind of going out of their mind, called Triangle.
Cool.
It's a female main character, and if you want to know more about it, you can read the recommendation on Underexposed Cinematic Treasures.
Yeah, cool.
But it was a find for me, because when I saw it, I didn't only find a great movie that I'd never heard of, but also a great director I'd never heard of.
Yeah.
So if you want a movie like that's great. Triangle.
Yes. And another very interesting genre of horror are things like The Wicker Man, not the bad Nicolas Cage one, but the original one with Edward Woodward and Christopher Lee. It's a great movie and really interesting, and very much sort of in the midsummer kind of genre of alternative belief systems. So that's another very, very cool one if you've never seen it.
I remembered my question as well. I'm sorry.
Wait, hang on one second. What, David? I'm sorry.
Is Belle de Jour one of those?
I've never seen Belle de Jour, so I can't comment on it. He's
at one point she's walking down a corridor and hands start coming out of the walls.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare. So.
Well, yeah, again, it depends on the mood you're trying to create. Catherine Deneuve, of course, also starred in Repulsion. And, so it's, so yeah, that also dovetails with surrealistic films, because that director did, L'Âge d'Or, and, which was really one of the weirder films ever made. So anyway, we digress. What was the question you had, Alexander?
Yeah, so it was actually for Elaine. I was wondering if you had any advice for male writers who are trying to write strong, driven female leads whose stories don't have anything to do with men.
Sure.
Well, yeah. Well, part of it is
nude scenes, right? Shower scenes.
Part of it is to put yourself into is to kind of try and eliminate the sense of other.
Right.
Between male and female. And if you sort of step into that character's shoes, the same way that I would if I was writing a male, you just sort of step into their shoes. The only shift that you would make is that culturally, women are much more likely to be able to talk to other women about things that men would not be allowed culturally to say to other men, because then they would be vulnerable and silly and blah, blah, blah. weak. Whereas women would be much more likely to create community. So, but that part aside, where there's that cultural difference, but not for all women, because a lot of women are pretty screwed up by their families.
But,
so they have, especially British women, so they're, they have their own walls. But I think that the main thing is to, beyond talking to a lot of women, is to try and get rid of the divide, the sense of other. Because everybody wants to be important. Everybody wants to matter.
But I should jump in on this. Look at in your own lives at strong females in your own lives. Strong, decisive, brave, with strong personalities. They should be driving the action. Avoid women getting hysterical in every chance you have, because in my experience in real life, men are the ones who tend to get hysterical, not women. Women are the ones who try and keep it together and actually make something, work out.
Yeah, I actually got knocked for that in a competition for having a female character who quote unquote remained too calm.
Well, it's different. There's a difference between calm and hysterical. Okay. That you want them to be reacting to the reality of the situation. So you don't want them to be emotionless. But what I'm saying is that someone who goes all helpless and is looking for a man to save her is rather horrible.
Yeah, but I mean, but if you put yourself,
I don't mess with that. No, it was more of I had the character in the situation wake up in a position that they didn't want to be in, and then kind of find their own way out. But it was a very rational line of thinking.
Well, let me jump in with one thing on that. If the person complaining about that was a man, then that's fuck them. So
all right. That's kind of what I wanted to hear. Just kind of
but as far as being too calm, I mean, pushing your way through is important. But the more that your this is for men and women, the more your character cares, the more we care. So if the character cares less, we care less. So even if they're holding themselves together and they're, you can see they're basically tough, but they're being affected, that draws us in more, because if they're caring, then we're caring. But I'm glad that you're trying that, because for many decades, women watching these films hated the women in the films.
And my mother's a COO, my aunt is a CEO,
That's
my
great.
wife does accounting.
Yes.
Like I'm surrounded by strong women, and I've always watched stuff like that and just been like, I wrote a whole paper about the use of rape scenes is a detriment in showing a female character's strength, because it makes the story dependent on the man.
Yeah,
I could go all night about that.
What I would suggest also, because I tend to write very strong female characters, like for instance, when I approached Mira Furlan to be in Space Command, I said I don't know a lot about your character yet, other than the fact that she's a xeno archaeologist. She has a very fiery but loving relationship with her daughter, and she's not defined by a man. And she said, "I'm in." And
absolutely.
But so the reason to avoid rape and all that stuff is simply take it totally out of the sexual context, which means it's not about her boyfriend, it's not about her husband, it's not about men fucking her over. Okay, so the moment you remove it from that context and say, okay, what stories can I tell? That immediately makes it a different kind of story, and an interesting story. I mean, Ripley is such a great example of a strong female character. She's terrific, and particularly in Aliens. And so it's basically, so just keep at it. You'll get to where you need to get.
What was the
I appreciate it. Thank you.
What?
Sean Connery as a sheriff. And
Outland. Frances Sternhagen. Yeah, but that's a supporting character, but she's good.
She's really good.
Yeah. Zardoz is a
Hotline.
great movie. No, it's Outland.
Outland.
But she's just a supporting character. I mean,
she's a supporting character, but she's a tough character.
Well, yeah.
And believably, yeah.
Yeah, but there's lots of stuff. Okay. Anything else, Alexander?
All right. No, that's good for me. Thank you, everybody, for listening to me and stuff.
Yay! 3 cheers. So, Adam, is there a Mr. Sci-Fi question?
I think, let's see. Yes. We have another question from Gregory Krug.
Hi, Greg.
He wants to know, have you ever written metafiction?
Well, it depends on how you define metafiction. if you're defining, I mean, meta usually means that you're sort of self-satirizing, or you're stepping outside of the framework of the fiction to comment on the fiction or on the genre. I tend, if that's what you mean, I tend not to do that, because I want my audience or my readers or my viewers to treat the reality I'm presenting as serious. And so I don't tend to break the fourth wall, and I don't tend to kind of wink at the audience in that way. If that's what you mean. If you want to elaborate more, if I'm not getting your question, just let me know.
Although I would say the closest that you came to that would be that Ghostbusters episode where
which one?
The one where they came into the real world and met Mark Siegfried. Yeah.
But we never ended up doing that one. It was just a notion.
True. That was just
a notion. And cartoons were kind of a little more rubbery when it comes to reality, because they're cartoons, they're already one step away from the real world. They have a somewhat different set of requirements and buy-in by the audience. You don't expect Bart Simpson to be real, for instance.
But in The Simpsons, he did step into another.
Yes.
Except in that one, Treehouse of Horror episode.
Yes, which was very fun. So now I guess it's Elaine, wonderful Elaine. It's Elaine's turn. Yay, Elaine.
Yes. So it's interesting to hear about Crestline, because I spent a couple of years as a child in Running Springs.
Yes.
So
up there in Arrowhead.
Yes. And I knew how much contempt we had for Flatlanders.
Yes.
And yes, but as a child, I wasn't in Running Springs. It was still a much smaller town than it is now. But it's still a small town.
Yeah.
But again, we're finishing off. I was very happy with the flexibility of film, because we were able to make an adjustment in one scene that never quite came together.
In the first hour of Space Command.
In the first hour of Space Command. And thanks to the work of a team. Which was our taking bits and pieces and reweaving them together with our editor and with our DP, piecing it together, and Mark, and a wonderful actor, and David Bartlett, who helped pull all of the little bits and pieces together, and we'll be working on the sound and color. We were able to fix something
to make it much better.
To make it better.
Elaine did a great job.
Thanks.
And
I envisioned it, but it was really a team, and it's amazing that you cannot say, oh well, what the hell, we'll let it go.
No, it was all you. No team. Just all you. Take suck it up.
Well, Mark and I are both sort of obsessive about,
just joking.
Are both a little bit obsessive of, no, that's really not good enough.
No, but see, it's interesting, because there's always the question of when is it good enough? I mean, I want to do superlative work, but we are fighting the challenges of cost and time and all of those things. So it's always the question of, where do you draw the line? It's a hard thing to answer, and it's a different answer for each person making film or TV or writing a book. I remember there was a wonderful letter that I saw at the Kubrick exhibit. And I actually took a photo of it because I was so impressed. And it was a letter that Stanley Kubrick was writing to a studio executive about his forthcoming movie on Napoleon, which sadly never got made. And he said, I can't tell you much about it other than the fact that it will be the greatest movie ever made. And with Kubrick, that's not hyperbole, right? I mean, he was aiming to do that. And it's such a tragedy that his Napoleon never got made. It would have been, I think, spectacular. But that was quite remarkable. So
but that was a lot of fun, because for this, it was like a key emotional point that had fallen away and came back. We were able to bring back.
It was great.
That was a lot of fun. And so right now, I said, I've got several projects that I'm juggling, and and we're fighting for the money.
Yeah.
We're fighting for the money, but for
trying
me,
to
it's
make
all
stuff go.
Trying to make stuff go. So
anything else you need?
No, nothing else but the eternal search for the long green.
Yes,
I'm working with a lot of wonderful people.
Okay, well, yay! Cheers, Elaine. So, Adam, is there a final Mr. Sci-Fi question?
Let's see. I don't. I think that is all for tonight.
Well, that's fine. That's not a problem. I'm glad. So, okay. So now it's me. Wonderful me. So a lot is going on. My God, we're busy. I finished the book Greenlighting Yourself, and I've gotten blurbs. My publisher wanted me to get blurbs. So far I've gotten blurbs from Guillermo del Toro, J.J. Abrams, Damon Lindelof, Rockne O'Bannon, Mark Fergus, who of course created and runs The Expanse, Christina Moses, Doug Jones, and others. So it's really gratifying to get those blurbs, and I think the book's going to do a lot of good. Beyond that, we're finishing up the first 2 hours of Space Command. We have visual effects now actively being done on the third hour. We've been filming the fourth hour in bits and pieces, but we're going to ramp up on that. I'm about to do a Kickstarter campaign to do over 100 episode commentaries on the Twilight Zone. I did 52 on the Blu-ray, and now I'm going to do the rest of them. And so that's going to be pretty amazing if we succeed at that. Meantime, I'm posting a different short comment on each episode of the Twilight Zone. Yeah, Twilight Zone Minute every single day on Mr. Sci-Fi. Beyond that, I got a call, very interesting call from a friend of mine, offering something that I may or may not come through, but boy, if it came through, it's spectacular. And I also am going to be the keynote speaker at the Serling Fest in about a week, and then I'm going to have lunch with a friend who's now a Netflix executive, and we'll see where that leads. So we're continuing with the Showrunners Network, which is 6 new series that we're working on, and Space Command's moving along, and it all just keeps going, huh? Life is filled with exciting times, and Mark Gushwitz and I are going to hunker down and with Dave and figure out the special features on this Blu-ray and DVD. By the way, I just emailed Doug Jones to see if he might want to do an audio commentary, possibly with Bob Picardo. So that would be really fun if they did it. Sadly, we lost Mira Furlan, of course, a few months ago, but that's such are the vagaries of fate. So that's about it for me. I'm trying to think if there's anything I need. If anyone has a MiG helmet, I'm looking for a space helmet to go with the Defying Gravity spacesuit, and the MiG 6 helmet works, but I don't particularly want to spend $500 or $600 right now while we're trying to finish Space Command. So. But other than that, life is good, and every day is Christmas. So anything
you need a MiG helmet for to borrow or to have?
To have ideally, but if it's a long-term borrow, like the rest of my life, that'd be okay. So
one of the guys who was in Crypto Historians is a Navy pilot. I'll ask him.
Yeah, great. And it doesn't have to be a MiG helmet. It just has to be something that looks like a space helmet, rather than a jet.
A fighter pilot helmet. I mean, you can get those.
Well, there's the high altitude ones that look like space helmets. As opposed to the fighter jet helmet that kind of ends here. It has to look like a space helmet. But But yeah, let's talk. We'll talk, Mark. So So other than that, life is wonderful. And I found something. I love eBay, and because there's a book I've been looking for, and it was always used copies of it were like $300 or $900. It was insane. And there's a wonderful film called Annie Aro, which is a science fiction film from Sweden that I really like a lot. And it was based on an epic poem about a spaceship that gets lost and what happens to the crew. And I've been trying to find an English translation of it that I could afford. And then someone put it up for like 20-something bucks, and I was able to get it. And so here it is, rare as hen's teeth, but it's this epic poem, which is super rare in science fiction, of course. But the guy Harry Martinson won the Nobel Prize for Literature, interestingly enough, and there you go. So there are things to uncover in the world. So that's about it for now. We will have more adventures next week. We're here every Thursday, and if anyone has further questions for me, you can reach me at markzickery@gmail.com. And definitely, if you have friends who are Twilight Zone fans, please hit them to twilightzonecommentary.com. It is going to be an amazing journey. And I guess that's about it for now. Thank you all for being here. It's been a lot of fun. And we'll talk again next time. Bye, guys. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye, Mr. Sci-Fi fans.